A major winter storm for the Midwest could be on the way in the very near future. Taking a look at the latest run of the European model, we see that for the most part throughout the United States, it's fairly quiet when it comes to precipitation. We do have isolated snow showers right over the western half of the United States, over portions of northern Utah, extending into Nevada, and even the higher elevations of Washington and Oregon are getting involved with some rain and snow showers. But continuing to move forward with the forecast, that's expected to change as once again the western portion of the US will continue to see heavier precipitation move in as another atmospheric river is expected to approach within the next few days. However, if we were to shift our focus a little bit further eastward, there's going to be a low that's going to develop right around the daytime on Thursday, and it's due in part due to this Clipper system that's just to the north of Minnesota that's going to induce just enough of a northerly flow for this area of convective activity to enhance, because this cold air that's being forced from this northerly flow will force a lightly dense and warm and moist air mass that's closer to the Gulf Coast states to rise and of course condense, and that's why we're going to see a larger area of convective activity by the time we approach a Thursday evening into early Friday time frame, and this will fall in the form of snowfall in some portions of the Northeast. Now, it isn't the big snowstorm that we were expecting for the Northeast to impact the coastal Northeast cities like New York City and Boston. It seems highly certain at this time is that it's going to be too warm right up along the coast to receive any sort of snowfall. You're going to need to be in the higher elevations of the Northeast to receive any sort of snowfall accumulation, and that's what we're seeing right here with the latest run of the European model. We do see heavier bouts of snowfall right over the higher elevations of Massachusetts, more specifically western Massachusetts, portions of upstate New York as well, and this extends throughout pretty much the entirety of Vermont and New Hampshire, even in the areas that have a lower elevation. So if you're in New Hampshire or Vermont or even in Maine, even if you're along the lower elevations, you're still expected to receive snowfall from this storm system, as there's going to be just enough cold air for that to happen. Now, up along the coast of Maine, it's more likely going to be a rain event, but don't rule out the possibility of some snow showers right along the coast of Bangor and into Portland, Maine. So definitely watch out for that. But for northwestern Maine, for certain, you should see snowfall. Now, in terms of how much snowfall, it could range anywhere between 1 to 3 to 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. If we were to take a quick look at the snowfall forecast from the European model, so taking a look at that real quick, you're going to see that it won't be that much snow. In the higher elevations, you should expect 3 to 6, but for the most part, 1 to 3 inches is a general consensus from all the most reliable computer models. So if you're in this area of the Northeast, you definitely need to watch out for that, as the worst of the snowfall should occur right around the daytime on Friday into the very early morning hours on Sunday. But for the most part, this should be a Friday event for much of the Northeast, so definitely watch out for that. Now, moving forward with the forecasts, you will see a higher amount of precipitation move through the Northeast, but after that, we will see that it's going to be slightly cooler than average throughout the Northeast for several days before a big ridge comes in and brings the temperatures a little bit warmer across the eastern half of the United States. But it's going to definitely help bring the more moist weather right up along the west coast, where portions of the Pacific Northwest as well as the higher elevations of California will receive a heavy amount of snowfall as the next atmospheric river is moving through, and it should bring heavy rain up along the coast of the Pacific, where places like San Francisco, LA, and into San Diego, you should expect very heavy rainfall, which is definitely the last thing you need in a lot of these areas, because you guys are already pretty oversaturated when it comes to rainfall. In fact, in LA, you've already exceeded your average annual rainfall, and it's only February, so to add even more rain on top of it, it could definitely raise concern of flooding. So watch out up along the west coast when it comes to this storm system. However, in the higher elevations, pay very close attention to heavy snowfall, as I know for a lot of the Pacific Northwest, it's been a fairly quiet year when it comes to snowfall relative to what you typically see, but you should see more snowfall out of this storm system, especially in the higher elevations. So it could range anywhere from maybe 3 to 6 inches of snowfall to over a foot of snowfall, depending on where you are in the higher elevations of Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, Montana. It really depends where you are, but definitely in the ski slopes, you should expect a pretty good snowstorm out of this by the time we approach the Monday to Tuesday time frame for many of these areas. So when it comes to the worst of the precipitation, it should the rainfall should move into California by Monday night. And then it should be an odd day event Tuesday for Southern California before it moves out late on Tuesday. But the snowfall will be the worst right around Pacific Northwest on Monday. And then it will be the worst a little bit further south, or more so right over Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming towards the Tuesday time frame. So definitely watch out for that. But now, moving on, this storm system is also expected to potentially bring a significant snowstorm to the Midwest by the time we approach the Wednesday and Thursday time frame. If we were to take a quick look at that, you're going to see that the storm system will encounter a highly unstable environment because, like I said, there is a big ridge that's going to be just centered right over the eastern half of the United States, and that's bringing a lot of that warm, very moist air mass well further to the north, which is certainly allowing this, which is forcing the warm air to interact with this cool and dense air mass, which is forcing a lot of lift right over the Midwest. So we should expect a pretty significant snowstorm here by the time we approach Wednesday right over the Midwest. It's still uncertain the exact trajectory of this. I know in the areas further southward, like cities like Chicago and Milwaukee, you're probably wondering if you'll get involved with this storm system. Right now, it seems like the computer models are leaning towards a little bit more of a rain event for Chicago right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do see the forecast shift a little bit further southeastward to bring snow to Chicago, because look at the forecast that we're going at. This is around 7 days out, and a lot could change between now and 7 days. So so the key thing we're gonna pay close attention to is how strong this ridge is, because of course the weaker this ridge is, more likely the storm system would take a track a little bit further southward, and that'll allow the snowfall to move a little bit further southward to potentially impact bigger cities like Chicago. But if we were to see this ridge even stronger, then it would be nearly impossible for Chicago to receive any sort of snowfall from this storm system, and we would see the snowfall move a little bit further northward as well towards a more or less populated area. So there's still a chance that a city like Minneapolis could be out of the snowfall. We're just going to need to see a pretty significant shift to where the storm system would move a little bit further northwestward, but that still has yet to be seen. Right now, it seems like Minneapolis would experience significant snowfall. Same goes for a place like just to the northwest of Des Moines. Nebraska could experience heavier snowfall out of this. The southern portion of South Dakota, and even northern Wisconsin and Michigan might get involved with some snowfall out of this. So to take a look at the steering flow pattern in a better picture, because this map doesn't really give that good, isn't really that easy to check what are the main steering flows with the storm. So of course, here's this first snowstorm moving through the northeast. Temperatures will fall a little bit below average for the next few days, I'll say up until the Monday timeframe, before a big ridge dominates the eastern half, and that's when we see the pretty significant storm move ashore right up along the west coast on Tuesday. And depending on how strong this ridge is, that'll determine if this storm system moves further northward or a little bit further southeastward, and that'll determine who receives the snowfall out of this. Now, the European model is leaning a little bit more towards the storm system moving a little bit further southeastward, but what's interesting with the GFS model is that the GFS model currently is expecting a very strong ridge, which not only would make it less likely for a city like Chicago to receive snowfall, but it would create sort of a trapping pattern to where this storm system, there will be like 3 segments of this storm system, with the last one potentially transitioning into an upper level low that could move very slowly and might bring the chance of snowfall to Chicago in the more long-term future. But as we clearly see, this ridge ends up being a lot stronger, so this storm system would bring the snowfall a little bit more northwestward than the GFS model, at least initially. But this ridge becomes so strong that it traps this low pressure system in its own little bubble isolated from the jet stream, so it would move very slowly, and that could be a concern because that could enhance the amount of snowfall and rainfall you receive right over the Midwest. Now, at this point, it wouldn't be an extremely powerful storm, mainly due to the fact that it's an upper level low. There's only so much cold air and warm air it could pull from before it eventually loses its energy, but it still could bring long duration impacts when it comes to precipitation. Let's take back a quick look at the forecasted radar to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about with the GFS model. So taking a quick look back at the GFS model when it comes to radar, we do see that the GFS model expects this first segment to move just to the north a little bit faster, just to the north of the US. The second segment, we see that the snowfall isn't anywhere near as consolidated, isn't anywhere near as heavy in the second segment, and does bring some snowfall over Minneapolis, but the rain snow line is well to the north of cities like Milwaukee and Chicago to receive any snowfall. And then we have this third segment, which it would be the segment that would transition into an upper level low like I see here, and that could be the most significant, where we could see a pretty long duration event when it comes to snowfall if this were to come for fruition, and maybe that could bring some snowfall into Chicago at that point, but it is still very far out. We're definitely going to need to pay close attention to this ridge just to the east of this storm system. A lot to take into consideration over the next week or so, so definitely stay tuned for more updates. But let's say the GFS model was completely correct when it comes to the amount of snowfall forecasted. So I'm taking a look at that. We do see it's primarily a light amount of snowfall from these first two rounds of snow, but with this third round, we see that it could potentially be very significant because we do see areas where South Dakota receiving over a foot. If we were to see this ridge become extremely powerful to a point where it will trap this storm and create a very long duration event, that would bring significant snowfall to cities like Omaha, into South Dakota as well, and going into Minneapolis. That third snowstorm could be pretty impactful, and that same snowstorm could bring some snowfall into Chicago as well. We can't rule that out. We're just going to need to see how strong this ridge will be. But taking a look at the European model, which is expecting a weaker ridge, the European model isn't expecting upper level low that'll slow down and bring a long duration event, but it's still expecting a relatively powerful storm where you would easily see around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall right over places like Nebraska, Iowa, extending into Minneapolis, and extending into northern Wisconsin. Just not a third round of snow like we're seeing with the GFS model. So definitely stay tuned for more updates. I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.